Problem 6-83. Add or subtract and simplify each of the following expressions. Justify that each step of your process makes sense. Letter A. 3x over x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus 3 over x squared plus 2x plus 1. Just simplifying this expression by adding them together. As we look at this, we can already see that we have common denominators, and that's one of the most important parts for adding our algebraic fractions. One thing though, let's go ahead here, and since even though we have the common denominators, when we add them together, we're still going to have to look to simplify things. So let's go ahead and factor our denominator anyway. That looks like it's a perfect square trinomial, so that shouldn't be too difficult. This would be the same thing as saying 3x over, when we factor this, we should end up with x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 1, or x plus 1 squared if you want to write it that way, that'd be fine. So we're going to say plus, this numerator is just a 3, and we get the same thing when we factor this one. We get x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 1. Remember, this process doesn't change. We have the common denominators, everything's set up and ready. Addition's way easy here, because it doesn't really matter what you have, you're just adding it across. Let's rewrite it as one fraction. So we're going to say 3x plus 3 and that is going to be over the quantity of x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 1. Okay, I don't need 4 of them there. It's the same thing as if you add 1/5 plus 2/5. Everybody knows that's going to be 3/5. Well, you don't need to add your denominators there. It's the same thing as saying 1 plus 2 over 5, which is 3/5. So make sure you don't make that mistake. In order to look to see if things simplify, now that we've added our numerator together and combined any like terms that we needed to, we have to ask ourselves, does this factor? And this is one of the little factoring parts that a lot of people overlook, and that is there a greatest common factor between the two terms? In this case, there is. 3 goes into both of these terms here, so if we factor out of 3, which remember is kind of like undistributing, we'd say 3 times what is 3x, that's going to leave us with just an x. And 3 times what gives us 3? Well, that would have to be a 1. So we really have 3 times the quantity of x plus 1. Now, if that's over x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 1, that means that we have a common factor in the numerator and the denominator. So when you divide those, that's the same thing as 1. You can box them in if that's how you do it. But we do need to simplify it down. So 3 times 1 is just going to give us 3. And then the quantity of x plus 1 times 1 is just going to leave us with x plus 1. And that ends up being our answer. Now, if you're looking for restrictions or values that we can't have in the denominator, we'd say, well, look at all the possible values of x that would make our denominator equal 0. And in this case, it's only the value -1. So we could also say x cannot equal -1. All right, B. B is a subtraction problem. We have 3 over the quantity of x minus 1 minus 2 over the quantity of x minus 2. As convenient as this one was, the first one, we had common denominators. Here, we don't. Remember, in order to make a denominator or change it, we're going to have to multiply it by something. You can't just add something in to change the denominator. So we're going to have to multiply. So what factor do we have in this denominator? It's the quantity of x minus 1. And x minus 2 is our only factor in the other denominator. So this factor doesn't exist over here, so let's make it exist. We're going to multiply this fraction by 1, actually, but in the form of x minus 2 over x minus 2. So just make sure I can fit everything in here. This would be like saying x minus 2 over the quantity of x minus 2. Because you know that anything times 1 is still itself. We're not changing the value, we're just changing what it looks like. So what about this denominator? The quantity of x minus 2. What factor are we missing down here? The quantity of x minus 1 is right. So if I multiply the denominator by x minus 1, I also have to multiply the numerator. Why? Because this is the same value as 1. So let's rewrite what we have right now. We're going to say 3 times the quantity of x minus 2 over x minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 1 minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 1 over the same denominator. Now the next step is your choice. You could take this and distribute your 3 through and distribute the 2 through and then go into writing this as one fraction, or you could do that step after you write it as one fraction. It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it and then simplify. So I'm going to say 3 times the quantity of x minus 2. And this is why I do this, because this is minus. So I'm going to remember this is minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 1. Which means I'm taking away 2 groups of x minus 1. That is normally where I see the mistake in the subtraction problem here, when we're subtracting a quantity. This is all over x minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 1. No, we can't cancel these here, so please don't even try to do that right now, because this one doesn't have that. This entire thing is a factor right now, or if you want to think about it in that perspective there, because we have the minus in between. Now let's simplify this. 3x 3 times negative 2 is minus 6. Now I'm going to take this negative 2, I'm going to take away 2 times x, so it's going to be minus 2x. And I'm going to take away 2 negative 1s, which is like saying plus 2. Let's go ahead and combine our like terms there. 3x minus 2x is going to give me x. I'm going to rewrite it down here. And then negative 6 plus 2 is going to give me negative 4. So I get x minus 4 all over the quantity of x minus 2 times x minus 1. Now the next thing we probably want to ask ourselves here is this completely simplified? For some teachers, this is completely simplified. They're fine with leaving the denominator in factored form. Other teachers want you to take it and multiply it out. And technically that is the most simplified form when you multiply it out. So we just want to FOIL these or multiply them using a generic rectangle. You should end up with x minus 4 over x times x gives us x squared minus an x minus 2x, so minus 3x plus 2. So the quantity of x minus 4 over x squared minus 3x plus 2. There you have it. That's letter A and B for 6-83. Hopefully this helped you. If you had questions, thanks for watching.